Okay, so let me first rain on everybody's parade and say that there is no golden one answer for everybody. Sorry, guys. So first thing is we've got 3 people with their things: a potter, a knitter, and a painter. $30? Does that sound good? No. So there's a lot of things to consider when he's filming. There's a lot of things to consider.
Michelle, hold on a second. What's the issue?
And move.
Okay, if you can't see from where you're sitting, please move. I didn't know that needed to be said. Is everyone good? Okay, cool. So there are a lot of things that you need to consider when you think about pricing your work. One of the things that I think a lot of us might overlook is our expertise. We've all probably been doing what we're doing for a good long time, and the knowledge and the skill and the speed that we do our work at is something that we've picked up over the years. It's not some random person off the street is going to be able to pick up where you are today. So you have to think about your expertise. How many years have you been doing this? If you were to, say, with your current level of expertise, go into a place of employment that does what you do, if they offer you $7 an hour, would you laugh and walk out? Or would you think that that's a great wage and sign me up for employment? So kind of think about that. Another thing is, we all know this, your customers and your venue. Are you selling at a farmer's market, a church bazaar, a high-end gallery? So kind of get a feel for where you're selling, and you can adjust your prices. One work that you might sell for $30 somewhere, you might sell for $60 somewhere else, because you know you can get $60 for that at that high-end gallery in that rich neighborhood where people have more money than they have sense. Also, your competition. The amount of competition that you have is going to restrict your ability to set your own prices somewhat. If you have a lot of competition in your chosen medium, you're restricted by your competition to some degree. But, and it's funny, the example I was going to use, if you make chainmail aprons and you're the only person making chainmail aprons, you set your price. You've got no competition. There is no other bar for other people to judge your work against. The other thing is your raw materials. Are you using plastic, glass, gems, silver, or silver fill? The quality of your materials will also dictate what you set your price at. Higher quality materials, higher prices. Lower quality materials, lower prices. You all probably know all this. And then there's the hidden expenses, the things we don't necessarily take into account. Postage, shipping, that was the same thing, but like the boxes, any of the things that you have to do to support your business, your website domains, website fees, like if you sell on Etsy. Those are all things that you have to account for in your prices if you're going to be profitable. And then there's the psychology of pricing. I could probably do a year's worth of presentations on the psychology of pricing. I've got a link to a fantastic website that does it all for me, and we can email that out to everybody. Yeah, it was way more information than I could even begin to scratch today. And there is such a thing as pricing your work too low, and we'll get into that in a little more detail later.
Take a couple of comments.
Sure.
The one thing on there I'd be careful about, this really, for people whose work is truly one of a kind, less of an issue, but if you sell something similar, pricing by venue can come back and bite you. I tried that originally because, you know, it was in this gallery, they marked it up 20%, I charged 20% more, because I was off my own. People see you and recognize you and come back. Aren't you the person I saw?
Right.
There's some goodness in keeping the prices the same everywhere. So somebody comes back, what was, you know, $50 here, $50 there. There's some comfort in that. So I've chosen to kind of like average it.
Right.
across the venues just because I don't have that problem.
Right, and that's definitely the safest approach. If you definitely have repeat customers, they kind of know what to expect price-wise. And you're exactly right. So if they go to one show and it's priced at $30 and they go to another show and it's priced at $60, they'll probably give you the stink eye and be like, what is this guy smoking? But then there's also the difference of you're selling your own work, but then if you have an outlet like a retail shop that is consigning your work, pricing will be a little bit different. And I think your customers would understand that if it's not you selling it.
Levelized it across all.
Oh, that's great.
I think people do though, because I know I would go to the torpedo factory back in the day and see a piece, and then see it at a craft fair for $5 or $6 or $10 less.
Mhm.
And I knew it was because there was no markup. Of course, I bought it at the craft fair, but I didn't feel that they were being robbed. to
Right.
the price of the gallery.
Right.
I do a lot of work in galleries and I sell a lot of our shows. If I sell at our shows, I get 100% of the price comes back to me. If I sell a gallery, I get 50% of it. The gallery takes the 50% commission. So I can't really afford to have the gallery prices be the same as when I'm sitting at a craft show, because I would then lose my shirt when I sold things at the gallery. So you just have to make sure that, like, the galleries that I sell at typically do not have the same customer base as the shows that I sell at. So part of it is just kind of keeping track of where your items are.
I definitely had experiences where I saw you there. So what I did is really raise my prices up to the gallery level. And when I found it, going back to the other comment about you can price too low,
Mhm.
I got a lot of feedback. My prices in my early years were too low. So
Right.
I raised them up, and it worked out. It worked out better.
I keep my website prices at the gallery prices. It's really at the show where people feel, feeling like they get a discount because they're buying it direct.
Right. I'm going to ask that everyone kind of hold their comments towards the end. I've got a lot to get through, and I actually cover what you talked about, Emily, about gallery pricing versus show pricing and things like that. So if you have questions, jot them down, and if I don't address them during the presentation, then we'll have a nice big Q&A and we can talk about stuff. Because everyone's got a different approach, and that's good, that's fine. And I know it can be a very heated topic because we've all had our own experiences and good things and bad things and all that good stuff, and it's all valid. It is absolutely all valid. So again, with the venue, it's just a little bit more detail. If you also know you're in a higher end neighborhood versus like higher income neighborhood versus a lower income neighborhood, wherever you're doing your show, you might be able to adjust your prices accordingly or not. And then I already talked about all this. I'm good. I don't even need the presentation. So a little bit more into the hidden costs. You have to think about your displays, transportation, show fees, really anything that goes into your business. And I know I personally have a hard time with this. I overlook a lot of it until it comes to tax time, and then I'm forced to look at it, and then I'm very sad. So just a couple really small things about psychology. I don't expect you to see or be able to write down that link down there, but there's the link. There is something called prestige pricing, and it's mainly for non-utilitarian items, so fun stuff, frivolous stuff. People generally have a perceived level of value. If the price is high, they perceive it as a high value item, so they're more willing to pay for it because it seems more desirable. I don't understand that. Psychology doesn't work the same for everybody, but that is actually something that other artists that I'm friends with have noticed in their work. They price things higher and it sells like hotcakes. And then the psychology of pricing specifically has to do with the way brains typically encode numbers and pricing information. And it's crazy. It could be where your price tag is located, the numbers that are in your price, the size of the text of your price, the color, all sorts of crazy stuff like that goes into the psychology. And some of it works, some of it doesn't. The website that I linked to talks about conversion rates, whether the prices actually sell more whether it's $2.99 or $3 and all sorts of stuff like that. So someone did all sorts of research, so check it out. We'll email it out to you. So talking a little bit about pricing too low, it can be a bad thing. Wholesale pricing at your shows undervalues not only your work, but the work of everyone else in your medium, in your category. So, you know, your fellow guild members and fellow show members that are doing the same thing that you're doing might get a little tweak if they're seeing you're selling your work that's equivalent in everything for half of what they're selling it for. But lower prices don't mean you win. Customers will also question why. Why is your price lower than hers or his? Is it crappy construction? Terrible materials? Is it not really handmade? So it kind of gets into customers' heads. Like if they've just seen pretty much the same thing at another booth at twice the cost, why is yours cheaper? But then there's another customer who'll be like, yes, score, got it, I'm buying this one. So it goes both ways a little bit. And the low price also puts you at a disadvantage. If you're selling at your wholesale price, and say a gallery or a store or a distributor comes up to you and says, I would like to sell your earrings. What's your wholesale price? They're looking at the $20 price tag you have on your earrings, they're expecting to hear $10. So if you're pricing at wholesale, can you afford to sell at cost to someone who's going to sell your stuff for you? And the answer is no. So again, no one pricing method is going to work for everybody. And what some of the things that go into this are your craft, what you're making it with, your personal process, your ability to account for your time, your expenses. All of those things play into what pricing method might or might not work for you. So I'm going to go over several. And I'll skip this. There's, 7 of them? So dynamic pricing. This is the one that everyone probably dreads. It's tracking everything. You track your time, you track your expenses, including your internet, your utilities, every penny you spend for your business, you track it all. And so your materials, it's also the small things, thread, glue, the little stuff that you buy in bulk and might use across 100 different projects. You have to account for that stuff too. It wasn't free. And again, with the labor, you need to pay yourself wages. You're not working for free. Or maybe you are, and that's okay. But if you're in it to make a profit, you need to factor in your wages. And again, with the expenses, any packing materials, anything that you spend a penny on for your business. So how the heck do you track all of that stuff? One of the ideas is you just be sure to jot everything down somewhere. Keep a log of everything that you spend. Keep a separate account if that helps for all of your business expenses. And then come up with the number of items that you'd like to sell in a month or a year. So you can do it monthly, annually, whatever makes sense for you. So you've got all your expenses written down. Say it cost you $1,500, don't I wish, in expenses for the year. And I want to sell 15 things. I'm not doing the math. You divide your $1,500 by your 15 things, and that's the amount of expenses that you would need to work into your price for every item. It's kind of a simplistic view. You might have bigger things, smaller things, adjust as it makes sense. And it really comes down to tracking. You really have to track everything. This is not a realistic method for me. I don't track stuff like that. I track the money. I don't track my time. It just doesn't happen. And then you also have to set your goal for your profits. What do you want to do with your business? What is your goal for the year? Do you want to pay off a loan? Do you want to buy a new kiln? Why do you want the money that you want to earn, and how much do you want to earn in the year? So then you figure that out too and spread that across the price of your sales goal for the year. I'm not a fan of that one, but that's me. Then there's the cost of materials or pricing in thirds. This is what I see most commonly when I talk to other folks. you just take your cost of materials for whatever item that you've made and multiply it by 3. So 1/3 covers your materials, 1/3 covers your labor, and 1/3 covers your profit. This will work for some people and not for others. It depends on your materials and it depends on your finished product and the time that you put into it. But it's especially good for someone like me who doesn't track my time. Day rate is another one. It's basically the amount of money someone needs to pay you to get out of bed in the morning. So what this looks at is you can kind of dedicate 8 to 12 hours, depending on your work style, in a given day to work on your products. And so the example that I'm using is $500 for a day. That works out roughly to $50 an hour. And considering the expertise and skill level in this room alone, I think $50 an hour is a bargain. Then once you figure out your day rate, you add your material costs later. So some examples are, you make this one product and it takes you 2 days to make it. That thing costs $1,000 plus materials. It's that simple. Or in one day, you can make 25 of these single things. So your materials might be $5 each. So $500 divided by 25 is money, $20 per item. So in your labor cost would be $20 per item, and then you add in your materials, which is $5. So that particular item that you made 25 of that day, you'd sell for $25. If you have this other item that you make that costs you $30 to make per item, those would be priced at $50. Your $20 for labor and then $30 for materials. So I hope that's making sense. I know it's a lot of math. Math isn't fun. So similar to day rate is hourly plus materials. If you can't dedicate a whole day, a whole work day, we'll say, to working on your items, but you can do an hour here, 15 minutes there, and you're actually good at tracking your time, there are apps for that. I have them. I still don't use them. And the difference between day rate versus the hourly is like the difference between being salaried versus hourly in an office job. So your day rate would be your salaried job. This would be your hourly. And it's the same math. You track your hours, multiply it by the wage that you've set. Are you the $7 person or the $50 person, or somewhere in between or more? And then track your cost of materials. It's fairly simple if you can track your time. Then there's the hybrid method. It kind of takes two methods and averages across to kind of get the happy medium. So you take your hourly rate and your cost of materials. So your cost of materials plus your wages gets your first price. And then you take your cost of materials times 3, so it's like the 3 by 3 by 3 pricing in thirds. Add those together, divide by 2, so you get the middle ground for those. That's more math than I care to do for my pricing. And you can also take any of these actually a step further and do some market comparisons. The internet makes this so much easier. Go to Etsy, go to Artfire, go to, Amazon's got a handmade thing now. So you can go online, look to see what artisans are selling their work for, and look at the highs, look at the lows, look for similar materials, and aim for the middle. And see if your pricing is somewhere around the mid-range of what you're finding online. Or at craft shows. Craft shows are a good place to look too. Then there's a square foot method. This is really good for artists, painters, people who draw, maybe photographers, I don't know, it might not make sense for photography. I do it for stained glass, some fused glass artists may do it too. It's where you have a finished piece that is easily measurable. You just do length by width, multiply them, and you can do it by square inch or square foot, either way. And you take your square footage and multiply that by whatever your price per square foot is. If it's $70 a square foot, $400 a square foot. It's a really easy way to get a price for a piece of artwork. I know a lot of painters who use price per square inch for their work, anywhere between 2 and 5, depending on who they are and how fancy schmancy they are. So, math. Okay. Market research method. If you really don't know what you're doing and you really don't want to track anything and you really just want the easiest way and you like surfing the internet, here's your method. You'll look at everybody making the same thing that you're making and look at their prices and you aim right for the middle. Now, just because someone has a price on it and it's listed on Etsy or Artfire or any of those sites doesn't mean they're selling. You have to look at their sold items. So they might have, you know, a little tiny painting priced at $3,000 and they've never sold anything. Well, their prices are too high, that's why. But you can do it. I wouldn't recommend it because that doesn't seem like it would necessarily be a good way to ensure that you recoup your costs and you get paid wages. So there's some other considerations too on top of all the math. What I call the PIA factor, pain in the ass. It's either the customer or the project that you're working on. If it causes you mental anguish, charge more for it. Charge more for it. You need to pay the shrink. And low pricing, while it might get you the bargain hunter sales, it's not going to guarantee sales. I've lowered the price on things that I'm sick of looking at, and they sit there because people are wondering what's wrong with this thing. I raise the price on the things that I hate looking at, they leave. I don't understand it. Maybe it's that perceived value thing. Another thing that I see a lot with artists and artisans and crafters is your own self-esteem. You are your worst critic. We are taught for our entire lives that we are not allowed to brag or be proud of the work that we do. This is exactly the place where you should be proud of the work that you do and demand the price that you're actually worth. Not what you think you're worth, but what you're actually worth. Which is higher than what you think you're worth, by the way. And then there's the products that don't sell. I already mentioned what I did with mine, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you need to look at them with a critical eye. If you've got something that you've been lugging around for 4 years and no one's buying, you put it out at every show, no one's buying it, take a look at it. Is it really just crap? Or is it something good that maybe you just need to adjust? I've made my share of crap. Don't laugh at me. Or is it something good or good bones for something? Maybe it could be reworked into something else and be made spectacular. It's not there yet. It's the start of something. Or maybe you just need to change your price, up it or lower it, depending on what you're looking at. Ask friends. You've got a room full of people here with a lot of knowledge. If you're sick of looking at something, take it to them at the next show and say, what would you pay for this? And then your booth. You may not necessarily realize it, but if you have a bad booth, whatever bad is, stains on your table coverings, or it looks like it's from the thrift store, if you've got a bad booth and super high-end products, people might be turned off by your booth, just by your booth, and they don't want to come in. So if you're really having issues with sales, take a look at your booth. You may need to redesign it a little bit, maybe pick up some new table coverings, I don't know. But that could be a turnoff for people that could inhibit your sales. And then don't forget, people are going to complain about your prices no matter what they are. Whether they're bargain basement or super high-end gallery, they're going to complain. So how do you pick your method out of all this stuff? Trial and error? And you know yourself. I know me, I'm not tracking my time, so anything that requires time tracking is not going to happen for me. So just tinker with them. See what works for you. Okay, so I shop on Etsy when I'm bored at work. And I like looking at other people's stuff because, you know, it's fun. And if you don't know, I'm a stained glass artist. So I decided, all right, let me look at something I know. I did a search for stained glass heart sun catcher. And I found 4 of varying styles, some that I like, some that I really don't, but that's beside the point. And they're roughly in the same size category. What would you expect to pay, price range-wise, for any of these? It wasn't rhetorical.
$45.
45? Okay, anybody else? 35? I know, you've got the math in your head. You know.
15 to 20.
Okay. So, I'm glad everyone but Alan and I are sitting down. Brace yourselves. $120 someone's asking for that. It is slightly larger than the rest, but you can kind of see how it's not in line with everyone else's pricing. These were all from Etsy shops. And I nearly fell over out of my chair when I saw that $120 because I was thinking, is it for like a pack of 5? It was for 1. So, yeah, that was the other thing. It hurt. But the one next to it's really pretty, with the glass drop hanging down from it. Yeah, I like that one.
Well, in line what you said, did you have sales of the 120 ones?
Very few. Very few. I don't know the vetting process for the sales there. So one of the things that I wanted to go over is there were a couple questions from the survey, the pricing, meant to do that. The pricing survey that we did a few months ago that I didn't cover in this. Here's the good one. So somebody asked, how do high-end crafters and gift stores approach pricing? I got into this a tiny bit earlier. And I'm going to change high-end crafters to manufacturers and gift stores to retailers. So a manufacturer, when they make something, it costs them money in supplies, money in labor, and money in other overhead costs. So their break even covers just those 3 things. When they sell to anybody, distributor, direct to a retailer, they're multiplying it at least by 2. That would be the wholesale price. Now when the retailer purchases it for that wholesale price, we'll say the wholesale price was $100. They're going to multiply it by at least 2 again so they can make a profit. So that $50 item is now $200 because it's exchanged hands and everybody needs a profit. Otherwise they're going out of business. And then someone else asked, does markdown on a ticket make a customer happy about a bargain, or does it make your store appear cheap? The answer is both. There's always a bargain hunter out there and they're happy to get a deal on anything. But in part, it does depend a little bit on your venue, and it does depend on your customers. Some people might snub their nose at a markdown. Like, oh, why are they getting, there must be something wrong with that. But a way around this is, you know you're going to have bargain hunters at a show. So you set a price that you're happy with, whether it goes down, it leaves you a little bit of cushion. And if you're talking to someone and you know they're a bargain hunter, say, well, I know you really like it. I can give you 5% off, 10% off. That might clench the sale for you. Then you don't have to deal with any signage or any prices with a little mark out, and no, it's $20 or whatever. And your customer still feels like they're getting a good deal. So there's kind of a way around that. If you feel the need to mark down your prices, build in a cushion and take it on a one-on-one or case-by-case basis with your customers. And I do that sometimes, especially with my larger pieces, when they're salivating over it and they really want it, but they don't want to dive right in, and you're like, you want 10% off? Yeah, take my money. So that was the other really good question from the surveys that wasn't already covered. And then there were a couple comments from your fellow guild members. One was, don't mark your prices down on Sunday, don't bargain. Set your prices and stick with them. And then underpricing devalues your work as well as the work of other artists in your medium. Just don't do it. And that was from somebody else, it wasn't even from me. So, after being bombarded with all of that information, what questions do you have?
I just have a comment, because this has happened to me twice. And I made a machine embroidered night before Christmas quilt. There were
Oh,
24 panels. And I had it in my booth. Well, first of all, I like to have something like that because people come in to talk about it. But I knew it would not sell at the show.
right.
And the next year, I put it up again. The third year, the show opened, and this woman said, okay, I thought about it for 2 years. And this has happened twice, so if
Yeah.
you think it's too expensive for the particular show, keep on putting it there.
Yeah.
People have looked at it every year.
I know my mother has been that customer for somebody right there. Yeah.
The pricing techniques that you showed,
Mhm.
were those for wholesale or retail prices?
Those were for retail. Yes. Yeah. So did Emily.
Actually, I had a couple of thoughts. Regarding hidden costs, not only do you have your materials and stuff, but for example, I do glass work. And I go through a lot of paper towels and glass cleaners. If I'm going to grind an edge of my glass, I'm going to be using diamonds, and when I have to replace a lap for the lap grinder, it costs me $4,600. So what I do is I take and I will admit, I pulled this out of air, but for each project that I work on, I add, depending on the size of it, $40 or $50 or $75, just knowing the materials that I'm going through, Alan picks up paper towels at Costco, but I don't, put that in as an expense, but it makes up for all of those little items that I know I'm going to have to replace. I call it my cost of consumables. The other thing I did want to point out, since you talked about marking down things in sales, the guild does rather frown on marking sale prices and stuff, especially in our shows, so don't do it. In a word. But that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of that elsewhere.
Right. And to sort of expand on your equipment statement is, if you have a specialized piece of equipment, sewing machine, kiln, lap grinder, soldering iron, anything like that, or specialized tools, kind of figure out how many projects you can get out of that thing before it's dead. And you can kind of spread that cost across all of your things. So if you spend $5,000 on a kiln and you can reasonably get at least 5,000 things out of it, if you're making jewelry, you can definitely get 5,000 things out of it. Tack on $1 to everything. Or, something like that. It's taking into account your big equipment expenses and even the little ones. Anybody else? Yes, Tina.
I keep my prices consistent because I feel that if I'm not paying someone else to sell it for me, I'm paying me to sell it for me.
Yes.
So my prices are consistent no matter where you get my work. But it's like if I'm at a show, I don't bring them down because I'm not paying someone a commission to sell them. I keep them at the same price because I'm paying me a commission to sell them.
Right,
I'm the
because
one
you've
who
had
lumped
overhead.
all that crap in there, yeah.
Yeah, you've got the overhead of your labor hours and the show fees and the gas
Yep.
to get you there. So absolutely, yeah.
And some galleries actually won't let you sell at a lower price when you sign that agreement with them. You are
Right.
signing that this is the price I charge for this type of item, because they won't sell it if people know they can get it from you directly for less money.
Right.
So sometimes there's that agreement that's made.
And that ties back into, are you selling at wholesale prices or retail prices? Because if you're selling at wholesale and you sign that kind of agreement, you've just lost all of your profit. You're now selling at cost. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple comments. One is you mentioned that looking at the market is a riskier proposition. I'll beg to disagree, because that's the best way of kind of finding out what's the, you have to make the presumption that, others have experience, maybe more experience, but by the time you look at enough market prices, you kind of find a zone that, pretty much what the market will bear.
Right.
I mean, and you have to make the assumption it's a reasonably smart market, that they're not going to underprice or overprice. But we continuously look at, I do black and white editing continually
Okay.
with other black and white artists, kind of what's their price for roughly the same size things. And the other comment I'll make, though, is you said to shoot for the middle. I don't. I want to shoot for just under the high end. I don't want to be the, for me, the perfection would be the second most expensive person there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they're overpriced, but I'm high quality.
Yeah, and what I didn't go into with shooting for the middle is if you're just starting with market research as your new pricing method, shoot for the middle first and then adjust as you see how sales go.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
Yeah.
I just organized a show out in a gallery in Middleburg for all glass artists. I mean, it's interesting because we have things ranging from $35 pieces of jewelry up to, I think, $6,000 is the higher end thing. And part of the pricing that became immediately clear was who the artist was. The people at the very high end have won all kinds of awards. They've taught classes up at Corning. They've taught classes at Pilchuck. Their work has been, in galleries and sold around the world. People at the lower end of the spectrum, nobody may know them. They're still trying to build a name. So who you are and what your credentials are matters at least sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, if you've made a name for yourself and you've taught classes, been published, been featured in magazines, things like that, then absolutely you're famous. You might not be internet famous, but you're famous. So you can charge more. You and then you.
I'm really interested in the psychology of the numbers themselves.
Yes.
I've read all these articles about the magic of 9. One article quoted an experiment where the same article was priced 34,
Mm-hmm.
39, and like 42, and people went for the 39. For the
Yeah.
same article.
One of the things that I was reading about the psychology is the type of item, whether it's utilitarian or frivolous, also plays a role in that very thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a fancy gift shop owner tell me that you price everything at, like $8.50, $10.50, because 99 is cheap because that's what Walmart does. And I noticed that at Nordstrom and Neiman's and the high-end stores, they use even dollar amounts.
Yep.
Even when they mark something down, it's even dollar amounts.
Yep. It's,
It's all a mystery.
like I said, there's no one psychology that hits every single person, but the website that you'll all get a link to, I think they went over like 50 some different pricing things and talked about the psychology of each and every one of them. It's insane how much research they did. Marion, and then you.
What experience people have had with volume. It seems like at every show I have people say, well, if I buy 4, do I get
Oh, right.
discount? And
Well, I know what I do. If someone's buying a ton of stuff and they ask me, I'll say I can give you 5% off. Because I have it built in. It's not going to hurt me to lose 5%. But that's my personal, that's not the only way to do it. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. And you can say no.
yeah.
You can always say no,
And
it's not
you can say
comfortable.
no because there are other people standing around. And
Right.
You get something going that you really don't want to go.
Exactly.
By the way, is the sign-up sheet going around?
Oh, Nadia, can you? And Bill?
When I first started out, I had the experience a lot of us did of somebody saying, your prices are too low. Well, gradually I raised them. I finally realized that I was starting to sell at what the prices I could afford to buy. And as I got better at what I did and got more interested, I discovered that a lot of them I couldn't afford to buy from me. Some of you have seen my fancy piece on the turntable.
I swoon over that every time.
I can't afford to buy that from me. And the other thing is being a big fish in a little pond. If you're at a show where there's no competition for what you do in any way, shape, or form, you can sell stuff.
Yeah.
I do a show at the end of the year where I sell all my leftovers. Because there's nobody else around there that does that.
Right.
And, but at Vienna, I've got competition. So it's an awkward thing, but as long as I can't afford to buy from me and other people can, I'll do okay.
So Liz, and then you.
You're talking about buying in bulk, and my policy has always been, if they ask, no. But if they buy 5, I said, I can give you a discount because you're buying so many.
Yeah.
That's the way
Yeah,
I
it does
work.
depend on the customer. If they're gross and schmoozy, then no.
I know one of the things I struggled with when I started, and I do use glass housewares as well as jewelry, was with the jewelry. I at first flat priced everything. All earrings were the same price and all pendants were the same price.
Mhm.
And I would have customers saying, well, this one's bigger than that one, or why are they the same? And I actually did start pricing per item, which is a pain for me, but it does make more sense, because there are pieces that use more expensive glass, or they are bigger, or they require braided grinding, and I make small, certain pieces that don't require any grinding at all. So
Right.
it's less labor on my part. But you do have to kind of weigh that. Is it easier for your customer, because also everything's a single price, but then you have to balance are they apples and oranges, or are they all apples?
Right.
And as a
Right.
top-
Yeah, one thing we haven't talked about, which I leverage a bit, is also interplay of different items in a booth when you're selling. I price my originals really, really dearly because they take forever, and I don't even mind if I don't sell them, because someone will look at that and okay, the original's $900, because I spent 3 or 4 weeks at it,
Right.
and then you'll see, for $85 I can buy the same thing as a print. We'll just go for it. So sometimes you can price certain things high that make other things that are still priced well,
Right.
inexpensive by comparison. And
Right.
Everybody can do that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I think, tailoring on both of you, if you have all fabric items, be they middle size or small size, you do have to get a sense of what is the general price range in your particular booth. You have to look at all of your similar products. The other totally different question is that if we are interested in having an overview by Michelle or someone of our booth, is this something that possibly can be, arranged? 'Cause a lot of us could ask you questions, but.
What do you mean by overview?
Well, at a show, like, I know it's a difficult question to ask, but to have an expert come, look at your booth as it's set up, and give a general opinion based on the knowledge they have of your.
Oh, I bet this room is full of opinions. But it's certainly within the realm of possibility. Whether or not any of us have the mental or physical wherewithal to do that at a show might be another question.
I think that's the sort of thing where you have to find someone else who's in your category, who you perceive to be, doing well at this, and speak to them about their pricing. Because I know how I price things is wildly different probably from how Michelle prices things in glass and so forth. Find somebody who does something relatively similar, because the whole range of the equipment required, how you get your materials, if you're doing wood turning with found objects as opposed to wildly different question.
Right.
So you need to find somebody who has some similar offering. And I also wanted to add that with buying multiples and giving discounts, you also have to consider the economies of scale. For some people, doing 10 of something is a little bit easier than doing 10 completely different things. You know, and I don't know, in fabric, maybe it's because if you're cutting out the same shape, it's easier. I know for the glass that I do, there is no such thing as economy of scale.
Right.
You know, it all takes time in the kiln, it all takes time, yes, I suppose there's some things where I can put 2 panels in the kiln at the same time, but the reality is, it is not easier for me to make 10 of something than to make 10 different things. And you have
Right.
to use that in your consideration as to whether you know, if you're gonna do wholesale in particular, but if you're gonna give someone a quantity discount.
Right. Tina?
I find that people in the United States are willing to pay more for something that's large than they are for something that's small. That's the way we think. In Europe, they look at something that's small and delicate, and they're willing to pay more for that than here. So not only do I take what the market will bear into consideration, but I take into consideration just that Cadillac mentality that we
Right.
have. And then the other thing is, I've had pricing parties. And what I do is I will invite important people I think in this category to my house. We have dinner, we have some wine, we hang out for a while, and then I'll have some items out with pieces of paper. I ask them to write on it what they think is a good price and put it upside down. There's no
Right.
identity to it, and it's very functional. It works really, really well.
Yeah.
Get a good bottle of wine.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Very good.